have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power,
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am
I am
tired,
tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
is Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Hello, friends and neighbors, and welcome to the Bill Press Show this Wednesday, August 27, 2014. Good to have you on board as we boom out to you on Free Speech TV all across this great land of ours and worldwide on TawkrTV. That's our video stream, of course, youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKRTV. Among all many other topics we'll be discussing this morning. It is official. Burger King says they are going to merge with the donut chain, Canadian donut chain, Tim Horton, all for the purpose of escaping U.S. taxes, of course, but more and more criticism from consumers who say they will never eat another big Whopper as long as BK is trying to evade its rightful share of U.S. taxes. Shame on them. Looking forward to President Obama somehow nixing this deal. The World Health Organization telling us that electronic cigarettes are indeed a health menace suggesting countries crack down on them because kids who try electronic cigarettes are indeed much, much, much more likely to graduate to the real thing. In Richmond, Virginia, former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell has ended his cross-examination by the prosecution. He apologized for taking all those gifts from businessman Johnny Williams, but insists there was no quid pro quo. That case could go to the jury as early as today. Ceasefire over in Gaza. We'll see how long this one lasts. And finally, there's a new device out on the market for consumers, a little thing called a knee defender you can buy, which will, on an airline, prevent the person in front of you from reclining his or her seat. This has created wars in the air over foot space and knee space. Tell you all about it and take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you on board today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
From Whoppers to donuts, BK makes it official. They are buying Canadian donut chain Tim Horton to escape paying U.S. taxes. Never eat another Whopper in my life. Hey, what do you say? Hello, everybody. Wednesday, August 27. Are you ready? Ready to rock and roll for another 3 hours? Here we go with the Bill Press Show this Wednesday, August 27. We got lots to talk about this morning, lots you're going to want to talk about. That's why we're coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station. And also on the video on Free Speech TV. You got a satellite dish. You can find us on DirecTV, of course. Glad to be with you. And don't forget, if you're not lucky enough to have a progressive talk radio station, a strong signal and a strong station, friendly progressive station where you are, you can always find us on iHeartRadio. Just go to one of our great local affiliates or through the app TuneIn. Just the TuneIn app, download it. It's free. And you'll find us there as well on the Progressive Voices channel. And worldwide, we reach out to you all across the globe, from around the globe, I should say, on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TawkrTV. With that, we say hello to all of you and to our team this morning, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Elisa, back. Welcome back.
Hey there. Good to be back.
And we have the whole team here this morning.
Everybody's here.
On those rare occasions. Yes, indeed. Elisa Cruz.
It is a rare occasion over the summer,
I
isn't
know,
it?
it is, yeah, with all these different schedules and events going on. Elisa Cruz here to take your phone calls at 866-55-PRESS. Please keep her busy, otherwise she falls asleep and then we have to end the whole program. And the Cyprian Bolden, boy, let's hope he doesn't fall asleep. Then, we'd be in bad shape. But our videographer keeping us looking good on TawkrTV and on Free Speech TV. How about it? We talked yesterday, Peter, about the Emmys. We heard from the winners of the Emmys.
Yeah.
Bryan Cranston on down, right? Now starting today, we're going to start to hear from those who were not lucky enough to win, and perhaps even those who didn't even get nominated. How about David Letterman, for example?
Boy, how about the Emmy Awards last night? Did anybody happen to see the Emmy Awards? Wow.
Huge show. Oh.
What an exciting show. Almost every show in television was nominated for Emmy Awards. And once again, I'd just like to say that it's an honor to be ignored by your peers. So thank you very much. We appreciate it. It means a lot.
Means a lot.
That's why I love Letterman.
Didn't even get a nomination.
That's why I love Letterman. He just owns it and just completely.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Those are great. Back when it was Leno versus Letterman, Leno had this great big billboard that said #1 in late night. And Letterman was losing to Leno, and he was losing to Nightline and all this stuff. So he put up this billboard right next to Leno's and said, #4 in late night.
That's great.
That's who we are. Yeah, we're going to miss him. Absolutely.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, right.
Seriously.
Coming up, we'll start out with Ray Locker from USA Today. Be joining us just a few minutes here in studio. We'll also have reporters from Politico, from Huffington Post. And we'll check in on the Robert McDonald trial down in Richmond. It could go to the jury as early as today. How about that? And if you are not happy with your latest experience on an airline, there might be a little device you might want to consider. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Call it a sign of the times. We talked about the MTV Video Music Awards that happened over the weekend. We got some ratings in, and it turns out that their ratings were down 18% from last year. Not as many people watching. The total viewership was 8.3 million. Like I said, that's down 18% from 10.1 million. However, this is a very interesting situation because it turns out that more people tweeted about the show than watched the show. On social media, the Video Music Awards were mentioned in 12.6 million tweets, and across all social media, including Vine, Tumblr, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, MTV saw 63 million social interactions during the course of the show.
Wow.
So viewership is down, but engagement, when you have 63 million people talking about it across social media, that's pretty interesting.
It says a lot about coverage these days.
Yeah,
right.
And how we're watching. Say what you will about Dan Maurer, but the guy's got a lot of balls. This is the story of Dan Maurer. Guy has a 100-pound scrotum.
Whoa.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I hope he has some kind of a support.
Well, here's the thing. Well, he doesn't. He has a whole rig of how he even puts his clothes on. It's like a inverted sweatpant situation that he puts one on one way and one that just covers the bulge. What it is it's called scrotal lymphedema. It is a growth on his scrotum that has caused it to grow to be 100 pounds. But there is good news. His mother and some friends put together a website to help him raise money to have the growth removed. So he is going to have surgery this week to remove the 100-pound growth on his scrotum.
If he has a...
Uh-oh, here we go.
No, I am not. No, I'm not. No,
just putting that out there.
No, I'm going to just leave that hang right where it is.
Oh, you're going to leave it? You can let it hang?
right where
let that hang, huh? Okay.
Right. I'm not going to ask the question.
All right.
That comes to mind.
And if we know that next month, in fact, here in just another week and a half or so, Apple is set to unveil their newest iPhone, but we're looking ahead because Bloomberg reports that Apple suppliers are gearing up to produce the biggest iPad ever, a 12.9-inch model. They're saying it should be out early next year. They don't think that it's going to be announced at the September event that they're going to announce.
Bigger like in size?
Bigger in size, a larger screen.
Come on.
Bigger iPads.
You can't get it right. I mean, I like the iPad the way it came out. Then they came out with a little iPad, which I don't like, and now they're going to have a bigger iPad. I mean, come on, Goldilocks, right? Just have it the way it is, right?
We will see it early next year.
Okay.
Get ready for it.
All right. Peter, thank you. Yes, indeed. Look, let's just be honest, right? More and more of us traveling by air these days, and air travel, which used to be, and I fly a lot, used to be fun. I used to really enjoy it, look forward to it. It is now a royal pain in the ass. Let's just accept that. It just is. The lines are too long, all the hassle with security. I mean, double security got to go through at TSA, whether you're patted down or whether you easily get through. The detector, waiting in line, taking off your shoes, all that stuff. And then you get on the plane. The planes are more crowded than ever before. Every flight that I've taken lately, every single seat has been filled because they have fewer flights. They cancel a lot of flights. They have fewer flights. So there are more people on the planes, and they don't give you anything anymore, right? Well, you can still get a glass of Coke free, but I don't know how long that's going to last. But they don't give you any peanuts anymore. They certainly don't give you any meals. They'll charge you for a pillow. They'll charge you for a blanket. They'll charge you for carry-on luggage, let alone having to check your luggage. I mean, it's just getting ridiculous. More and more fees that are being added on. And they cramp you into smaller and smaller space. The seats used to be 32, 33 inches wide. Now the average seat is down to 31 inches wide. Right? That makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And I got to tell you, there's nothing, I hate it. When I have that empty seat alongside of me and I see people coming down the aisle, and I just check them out. And I said, oh, boy, I hope that guy doesn't end up alongside of me because somebody's got a few extra pounds. They don't have to be huge.
Sure.
Just stocky.
Yeah.
Right? And they're spilling over on both sides of the seat. No, it's crazy. And then there's less knee room. There's less space in between rows and everything. So no doubt about it. But is the answer to take matters into your own hands and prevent anybody from getting into your space. In other words, prevent the seat in front of you from reclining? Well, one man thinks it is, and he has come out with a product. It's just on the market right now. It's called a knee defender. Well, and this little device, it's a plastic device. You get two of them. It costs $22, right? You get two of them, and you put them right below the tray of the seat in front of you, and it will prevent the person sitting in front of you from reclining his or her seat at all. You know, and look, we've all been in that situation where sometimes the person in front of you just totally doesn't give a damn, right? Will put their seat all the way back, and it's almost like they're on your lap, right? Not all the seats recline that far anymore. But this device will prevent the seat from reclining at all. And you knew this was going to happen, and yesterday it did happen on a United Airlines flight from Newark, New Jersey to Denver. A guy had bought the knee defender, put it on the seat in front of him. I think it was a woman. Anyhow, the person in front of him tries to recline the seat. It won't work. It says, hey, what the hell's going on? Well, I've got my knee defender on your seat. You can't do that. Boom, boom, boom. They get into a big tussle. The flight was diverted to Chicago, and both of them were thrown off the plane. I don't know what happened to their luggage. Both of them were thrown off their plane because they had this big fight over this knee defender. Now, I got to tell you, I don't blame the person who wanted to recline, let's say it's a woman, her seat, right? She's got every right to recline her seat. I just can't believe that you can buy a device that would interfere with the operation of that plane in any way whatsoever. I mean, what right does a passenger have to basically to reconfigure the seating on the plane? And you can't do much on the plane, but at least you can recline your seat and take a nap. And now, if you're in front of the exit row, you can't do that. Okay, everybody knows that, and you know why. But every other seat you can. And I've got the right to decide whether you in front of me can recline your seat or not. No way. No way.
Here's the thing about flying. It's become...
I can't believe they even allow people, and the airlines would even allow these on the planes.
Right.
They
Which, and by the way, they are legal.
Ban them.
Yeah,
they're legal.
There was a whole
they're
issue
perfectly
about this
legal.
when they first hit the market. The thing about flying is these days, as you mentioned, it just kind of sucks.
It does.
Way that
Total.
airlines have done to flying, it just kind of sucks.
Taking all the fun out of it.
The guy that invented this is 6'3", so am I, and I can relate. I understand why I get pissed off if I'm sitting there and someone reclines their seat. However, that's just the social contract of flying now. It sucks, but it sucks for everybody. So you can't
change the makeup of the plane.
Right.
I mean,
as a tall person, I don't, like I said, I don't love it when someone reclines their seat, but that's just the deal. But they have the right to recline their seat, just like I do.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, where could this lead to? Okay, boy, I can't relax without music, so I got my boom box, right? I'm putting my boom box, I'm turning it up full throttle, and if you don't like it, too bad. This is my little space, and I got my boom box in my space, and I'm gonna or I mean, just go. I need a bigger. That table's not big enough for me. So I've got this big table that unfolds.
I need a workstation.
A workstation. And I'm sorry, I'm just spread out here because I need this space to do my work. I mean, you may not like it, but that's your space. And the person in front of you, that's their space. And you cannot interfere with that. No way. These things should not be allowed. Ban them. 866-55-PRESS. And, listen, Mr. Big Guy, you got a problem with that? I got the answer for you. Fly first class.
Oh.
If you don't like it,
people.
You don't like it. Fly first class. All right. There's the answer.
Let me ask you a serious question.
This is absolutely crazy.
Let me ask you a serious question.
I mean, yeah.
You fly a lot.
Yeah.
Let's say you go to recline.
And I don't fly first class, by the way, unless somebody else pays for it.
Sure.
I'd have nothing against it.
Yeah,
but I can't afford it.
Right. Let's say you go to recline your seat.
Right.
And you can't recline at all because the person behind you has put on a knee defender. What do you do?
I'll tell you one thing. That person could be sorry they ever bought that knee defender.
Because at first thought you'd think the seat was broken, and you might even ask the stewardess, "What's wrong with my seat?"
The that seat would be broken by the time I got finished with it. What do you think? Do you think these things ought to be allowed? I'm going to start the anti-knee defender crusade. 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
And, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go. 26 minutes after the hour. Frequent flyers to the rescue here. The question is, how would you feel if you're flying coach or economy plus, whatever they call it? Everybody's got sort of that, little special kind of section of coach. And you settle in, take off, and you want to take a little snooze before you have your meal or pick up your book or whatever. And you can't recline your seat because somebody in back of you, not the airline, some passenger, has bought this little device called a knee defender, and they basically lock you in. Boy, I can't tell you how angry I would be if that happened. I would not. They'd get that knee defender off so fast. Comments before we continue? Yes.
Mixed reaction on Twitter, by the way, this morning, Bill. Remember, we're tweeting.
No mixed reaction.
We're tweeting at BP Show.
No, there are two sides to some issues.
Not this one?
Not this one.
I think Bill is starting a hashtag here.
Find us on Twitter at BP Show. Weigh in on the knee defender and any other issue you'd like to weigh in on. Mama for Obama weighs in, says, recline your seat, but do not put your seat on my knees. I will say something to you.
Yeah, that's right. Most seats don't recline that far anymore. Right. If that happened, and you can say something to a person. Could you mind moving up just a little bit or something?
Don Griffith says, if someone put a knee defender in my seat, they will be walking pretty funny when they depart the plane. And Gene Star...
They're going to need a knee defender.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right, because they'll break their knees.
Gene Starwin says, a seat not being able to recline will not affect the safe operation of a plane. So what's the big deal?
Well, the big deal is you can't recline your seat. Yeah. You paid. That's the other thing. Whatever you get for your money, which is not as much as you used to get for your money, part of it is you get a seat, you get a tray table, and you get a seat that can recline, right? Now, so if somebody, that's another thought. If somebody's interfering the ability to recline, they owe you money.
Good point.
Or the airline owes you money for allowing them to interfere with the operation of that seat.
I'm surprised the airlines aren't putting the knee defender on and then making you pay to take it off. That seems like something that they would do.
Don't give them any ideas.
I'm sorry.
That's where this is going to come to. The airlines will be handing them out and charging for them.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
You got it. 33 minutes now after the hour on a Wednesday, August 27. The Bill Press Show booming out to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, just down the street from the United States Capitol building. Brought to you today by the American Federation of Teachers, good men and women. Teachers of America already back hard at work here, even though summer's not over. Members of the AFT under President Randy Weingarten making a difference in America's classrooms every day. You bet. And you can find out more about their good work at aft.org. Here you go. Kids are back in school, and the president is back in the White House. Ray Locker is the editor of the Washington Bureau here of USA Today, and he keeps his eye on what's going on at the White House and joins us in studio early this Wednesday. It's good to see you, Ray. Thank you.
Hey, it's great to be here, Bill.
And particularly good to see you wearing the Washington seersucker, keeping the summer tradition alive.
Hey, well, you got a few more days, Labor Day, and I got to put it back in the closet.
I mean, you and Trent Lott and all these, the Southern
Trent and I are like this.
They still have that. They revived the seersucker.
They have, and it's a good
tradition this year, didn't
It's
they?
going to get hot today.
Is it?
Yeah.
Now, is it really cooler?
It is cooler
than a regular suit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're going to wear wool in July or August around here?
How about shorts and a T-shirt?
Hey, not everybody's as lucky as you are.
Okay. So the president came back from Martha's Vineyard in a sea of criticism about he shouldn't have gone on vacation in the first place, or he shouldn't have stayed so long, or he shouldn't have played so much golf. Criticism worth it?
It happens with every president, no matter what party the president is in, where they go. I mean, I guess Crawford, Texas, not as chic as Martha's Vineyard, although I've never been there, which kind of gives probably a good idea how chic it is. It always happens. That's what you do. You keep the other side off balance. But, I mean, he didn't go any longer than anybody else has gone on vacation.
Yeah, in fact, considerably less than some have. Right. Yeah.
And is that ever really a vacation? I mean, now I have a hard time going on vacation with, electronics. People can get in touch with you. With him, the pressures are even more so.
Right. Probably the bigger question really is for those of us around the White House, and it came up again yesterday at the briefing, not yesterday, before, is why he interrupted his vacation to come home for back to Washington for 2 days. The official word was because he had some meetings that he wanted to hold at the White House. But as you point out, he's president wherever he goes.
Right.
So this is still a mystery, isn't it, as to why he interrupts his vacation, came back here for 2 days.
I think it's because he wanted to have dinner at Sam Cass's apartment, which is what he did.
Which is what he did.
Yeah.
Which was apparently, by the way, there's a big mystery, too. We don't know who was at that dinner other than
Right.
Sam Cass and the president.
Mhm.
And apparently it was a bachelor party for Sam, who I think gets married to Alex Wagner this weekend.
Oh, was it this weekend?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. That's
Now we'll never know what happened in there.
Right.
No.
No way.
But he was there for 5 hours at Sam's apartment, right? You know, I mean, I've been trying to probe this thing, and that's as much as I've found, that everybody's very tight-lipped about it.
I think we need to get the security film from that apartment building.
Oh, yeah, good luck, right? Not even NSA.
Yeah, exactly.
has that one.
You think it's conveniently fuzzy, or somebody put a towel over it?
Oh, darn the luck.
But the other theory is, he came back only with one dog, with Malia.
Right.
The two of them came back. Michelle stayed up there.
Mhm.
Sasha was, I think, off at camp. And so some people are suggesting, and one of our guests in studio suggested too, that there was something to do. Either she had to get her driver's license, it was some Malia-related need that really brought him back to Washington, or maybe first date night or something. Who knows?
You mean the president went down to the DMV with her and
Well,
was
that's
hanging
what
out?
I was wondering. God forbid he would have that experience in Washington D.C.
The horror.
like all the rest of us had. But when he comes back, you talk about a time when he's got a lot of serious stuff on his plate. Where do we start? Starting with the ISIS and this decision whether or not to expand airstrikes into Syria. That's a tough decision for him.
Yeah, it is a tough one. I don't think he wants to do it. I think he's going to end up doing it.
Looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, they've given the authority to do the intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance flights, drones, or whatever they're using. You only do that if you're looking for something to bomb or something to attack, or just to make sure you know where things are. And I think once you do know where things are, if the threat is sufficient enough, you usually do something about it.
Mm-hmm. Now, as some people pointed out, as you said too, it's a decision he does not want to make. One thing that complicates it is that ISIS may be our enemy; they're also the enemy of President Assad of Syria.
Right.
So, to the extent that we diminish them or destroy them, we're actually helping the guy that we've been fighting against for or trying to get rid of for the last 3 years.
Right.
I mean, there's no way around it, is it? If to the extent that we damage ISIS, we are helping Assad. We're strengthening Assad.
Well, the argument Assad has been making for years is that I may be doing things that you don't like, but I'm keeping the lid on an area that is really fractious. And if you pull the plug out for me, who knows what's going to come out? We're seeing that happen.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Right.
And the same with Saddam Hussein. I mean, that was part of what he was doing, too. We didn't like the guy. Was a terrible guy. There's no way around that. But he kept that country together through means that I don't think any American would like, but that's what happened.
Mm-hmm. And now Assad is saying, okay, if you want to help me by taking down ISIS, then this is my country, basically, so we'll help you. We'll cooperate with you. We'll even give you some intelligence about where these forces are, because they've been looking at them, obviously. But you have to ask us permission first if you're going to do any bombing runs in our country, which is in fact, Elisa, we've got Jen Psaki from the State Department yesterday, that very last clip there where she said that's the one thing they will not do. Jen Psaki, spokesperson for the State Department.
When it comes to the interests of the American people, the interests of the United States, we're not going to ask for permission from the Syrian regime. However, there isn't a decision that's been made, and certainly that would be one that would be in the president's hands.
Right.
We're not going to ask anybody's permission, but
certainly not his permission.
No.
Right?
Hey,
Yeah,
can we hit
right.
this place right here? Is it okay? No. I mean, at most, maybe we tell him something's happening. By the way, that blip you see on your radar back in Damascus is us. Don't do anything. Look, we all know where the targets are. They know, we know. They want us to hit those targets. I think it's probably in the U.S.'s best interest to do that, whether it helps him or not.
So let's contrast this decision to, and I agree with you. I think it's pretty clear, the writing's on the wall. If they're doing surveillance flights, I have said by the end of this week, they're going to be announcing airstrikes inside of Syria. But contrast that decision with the decision just a year ago about whether or not we would bomb Syria in response to their use of chemical weapons. And then the president made the decision not to do it, and now it looks like he's going to make a decision to do it.
Right.
How's Congress going to react to one versus the other?
I think the threat of ISIS is so much greater than people thought with the threat of chemical weapons. I don't really understand the reluctance last year to block the chemical weapon strikes. I mean, it seemed pretty bad. And in the end, it worked out. They're all gone, as far as we know. And it seems like most of the people who checked have said they're gone. ISIS does a lot of things that nobody can support. And I think it's pretty clear that these people have no agenda other than to run a crazy theocracy based on their weird interpretation of Sharia law. And most people agree they need to be stopped.
So that Congress will say, in this case, okay, we're doing the right thing.
Yeah, and I think the administration is talking to them right now about what to do, how to craft some kind of resolution that fits into, what they want to do. I mean, we're not going to see a Tonkin Gulf resolution, no open-ended commitment there, but something that's more narrowly focused.
But then the question is, the military experts that I've heard to say, even Chairman Dempsey said this last week. Airstrikes, but you're never gonna defeat or destroy ISIS by airstrikes alone.
No, that's true.
Right? So this is sort of a gamble that if we, with the airstrikes, weaken them enough that then the Kurds and the Iraqi army will be able to come in and finish the job. But to what extent can we count on them?
Well, they haven't done such a good job beforehand.
Right.
Well, maybe this time they'll mean it. I mean,
maybe
it's hard.
This time they won't just throw down their arms and hand them to the ISIS fighters, right?
I mean, it all depends on who's actually doing the fighting and how well they respond to the new central government there, whether they can get it together. I mean, obviously, Maliki wasn't getting the job done because nobody wanted to fight for him.
Mm-hmm. Right. Do you think there's any way that this is going to be resolved before Barack Obama leaves office?
Probably not. I mean, this is a long-running problem. Has anybody really solved the Middle East in 4 or 8 years?
No.
I mean, no. I mean, look, Syria and Iraq probably shouldn't be countries in the configuration they're in right now. That's a post-World War I map drawing exercise. And, we're still sorting that out.
Oh, yeah. Across the Middle East.
Yeah.
That whole thing. I mean, we thought, at the time, right, they thought they could do almost a cookie-cutter approach. Yeah, well, let's boom. No. And they put people together should not have been together. And
absolutely.
And we're still fighting those battles.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it's, that's why they pay Obama that's why we pay him the big money. That's why his hair has turned so gray, decisions like that. Ray Locker here with us from USA Today, usatoday.com, of course. You want to join the conversation, welcome to do so. Invite you to do so at 866-55-PRESS. This question about would you support the expansion of our mission against ISIS, not just airstrikes in Iraq, but airstrikes against ISIS in Syria. That's right on the President's plate today. Again, 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption.
Turn the lights
We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
should I get back?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
"11 minutes before the top of the hour. Will Dobson from Slate will join us at the top of the next hour. Right now, in studio with us, Ray Locker, Washington Enterprise Editor for USA Today, here at usatoday.com. We should mention our viewers and our listeners are used to David Jackson at this time. You are David Jackson's editor.
Indeed.
So this is what happens. David Jackson celebrated his birthday yesterday, so he's taken some time off and is not with us today, so we fixed him. We brought his boss in.
That's right.
Damn right.
That'll
teach him for taking time off.
Never take any time off. Don't sleep on us.
He won't go. He'll never leave his post again, right? Oh, Ray, it's nice to have you.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you. There's a front page story in the New York Times this morning about the President Obama is trying to put together some kind of accord, international accord through the United Nations on climate change. The reason being he wants to do something about climate change, but he knows he can't get anything through Congress. Isn't that the story of his, except for the first 2 years, the story of the Obama presidency?
Pretty much. I mean, the House Republicans...
On all kinds of issues.
Right. I mean, it's obviously frustrating for him, and it's the Republican caucus in the House has strong beliefs about how things should go and what they want. Many of the things he wants, they don't want at all, so they're not inclined to compromise with him in any way. So that's the situation we find ourselves in, and it's going to be that way for the next 2 years, regardless of how things turn out in November.
And maybe the most immediate one is immigration reform.
Correct. Right? I mean, they had a bill that passed the Senate that lingered in the House and now seems to be finally dead. They tried to do something again before the recess. They got a little thing out. Everybody knew it wasn't going to go anywhere. And then basically Speaker John Boehner tossed it in Obama's lap.
Right. And the only thing that they did pass by the House before they left was a measure to undo the one thing the president had done by executive order, which was the Dreamers Act, basically.
That's going nowhere.
Right. So what do you do? What does he do for the next 2 years?
Oh, he's going to keep doing what he is doing now. He's going to do as many executive orders and executive actions as he can. I mean, look, it's still great to be president if you want to affect policy. You can appoint people to certain jobs if they hold a majority in a Senate, or at least keep it at 50 with the vice president voting. You can still get your appointments through, judicial appointments. He's made a lot of changes that way. It's a job worth having. You're not going to have great legislative achievements, but few presidents do in their final 2 years.
Right. So looking ahead, I mean, that's going to have to be his attempt. What can I do as president? Even without the Congress in any of these areas. Right.
And I think it sets up the 2016 election really well, and whoever the Democratic nominee is, and it looks like it's probably going to be Hillary Clinton right now. You got an economy that's getting better. I think all the indicators show that. You're going to have an opposition in Congress that's going to be tough to deal with, and I think when the economy does better, it's going to do well for the Democrats.
And do you think his executive actions could include some effort, as far as he can go, to stop this practice called inversion, so that Burger King and other companies cannot take advantage of buying a foreign corporation to evade U.S. taxes?
I think he'll try to do what he can. I don't know how much you can do when it comes to tax law by yourself. You need Congress to do it, particularly since most tax legislation comes out of the House.
Right.
And, Ways and Means Chairman Dave Camp had a proposal earlier this year that was substantive. You may not agree with a lot of it, but it was serious, and people thought it was a place to go, and it went nowhere.
Right. And then he decided to resign.
Right.
To retire.
Whatever. Yeah, perhaps because of that. Or maybe he thought he was going to quit and said, I'm going out with a bang, and here it is.
All right. Well, enjoy your last few days of summer, Ray.
I will.
And thanks so much for coming in this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Great to see you.
Yep.
And you don't have to wait till David Jackson goes on vacation to come back.
Good to hear. Thanks.
All right. Ray Locker, we'll be right back and tell you what the president's up to today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'm not necessarily looking out and seeing all these water-wasting lawns and people that aren't as connected to their neighbors and their lives as they could be. I'm walking down the street looking, going, edible oases, rainwater, fed landscape, and just looking at the possibility of these sort of landscapes up and down the streets of neighborhoods and communities all across this world. Small actions do ripple, and they add up, and they have a cumulative impact. And so when you're building upon your small mindful actions, you have the confidence and the ability to take on something a little bit greater. So that would be nice. This, in the context of where we're at as a planet, with climate change and these really big issues, and people that are more disconnected and less skilled than ever, it becomes even more amazing and powerful how much of a solution this is to design these ecological gardens and to come together with shared vision and shared voice. There's never been a time where your choices have mattered more. Doing something as simple as us transforming a landscape creates a model that anybody could look at far and wide, and you're sharing food and connecting and building skills together in your own neighborhood. It's a richer way to live in normal times, but in the new normal of climate change and erratic weather and economic upheaval, it becomes essential. Whether it's me, you, Gandhi, Che, MLK, Willy Wonka, whoever, past, present, or future, the power of our daily actions is all that we have. You know, and like Archimedes said, give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I'll move the world. And that's what those simple actions do. They move the world every day.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Who is ISIS anyway? Will Dobson from Slate will tell us at the top of the next hour.
Breaking news, Bill.
Breaking news.
There are reports nationwide of Time Warner Internet customers having a complete and total outage this morning. People are waking up and finding out that Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, Tampa, New York, all saying that their internet service provided by Time Warner Cable is out.
What do you do?
Well, for the first time ever, people who use Comcast are actually happy that they use Comcast. So
this is the one time it's an advantage to have Comcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, back a couple more hours coming up. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hello, friends and neighbors, and welcome to the Bill Press Show this Wednesday, August 27, 2014. Good to have you on board as we boom out to you on Free Speech TV all across this great land of ours and worldwide on TawkrTV. That's our video stream, of course, youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKRTV. Among all many other topics we'll be discussing this morning. It is official. Burger King says they are going to merge with the donut chain, Canadian donut chain, Tim Horton, all for the purpose of escaping U.S. taxes, of course, but more and more criticism from consumers who say they will never eat another big Whopper as long as BK is trying to evade its rightful share of U.S. taxes. Shame on them. looking forward to President Obama somehow nixing this deal. The World Health Organization telling us that electronic cigarettes are indeed a health menace, suggesting countries crack down on them because kids who try electronic cigarettes are indeed much, much, much more likely to graduate to the real thing. In Richmond, Virginia, former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell has ended his cross-examination by the prosecution. He apologized for taking all those gifts from businessman Johnny Williams, but insists there was no quid pro quo. That case could go to the jury as early as today. Ceasefire over in Gaza. We'll see how long this one lasts. And finally, there's a new device out on the market for consumers, a little thing called a knee defender you can buy, which will, on an airline, prevent the person in front of you from reclining his or her seat. This has created wars in the air over foot space and knee space. Tell you all about it and take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you on board today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
From dollars to donuts, Burger King makes it official. They are buying Tim Hortons to escape paying their fair share of U.S. taxes. Stay out of Burger King, folks. Hello, everybody. What do you say? Hello, hello, hello. This Wednesday, August 27. Great to see you. Thanks for being with us on The Bill Press Show here on your local progressive talk radio station. Here on Free Speech TV worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Thank you for joining us. With a lot to talk about this morning, yes, indeed, President Obama making it clear yesterday to the American Legion that the mission of the United States, goal of the United States, is to destroy ISIS, and it looks like airstrikes against ISIS targets inside of Syria is next on the agenda. We'll be taking a look at that. Another ceasefire. It looks like this one may last in Gaza. Both sides claiming victory. Who cares who claims victory as long as a ceasefire lasts. And here in the United States, a big dust-up on an United Airlines flight yesterday because one passenger hooked up a device to the seat in front of him to prevent that seat from reclining. And we are launching a campaign, a crusade here on the Bill Press Show to stop those devices from ever getting on any other U.S. airline. Should not be allowed. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number. We invite your calls at any time as well as your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. The team back together again today. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hey, good morning.
Alicia Cruz has the phones covered and waiting for your calls at 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Balding is there to keep us looking good on the video stream, TawkrTV, and on Free Speech TV. There is a little bit of breaking news today in that, believe it or not, some new evidence has come forward in the shooting of teenager Michael Brown out in Ferguson. He was laid to rest, of course, on Monday. But a neighbor has, through his attorney, has released an audio recording that he had made. He had his window open. He was, I guess maybe he has an attorney here because he was on a sex chat line, if you will, or at least on a FaceTime.
Well, he
with
was having
a
a video
friend,
chat with a lover.
And so it's kind of a little. Things kind of don't fit together here.
Yeah.
But he's got his window open. He's sitting there. He's talking to his lover on FaceTime, and you hear outside the window. You hear him talking to her, but you also hear the gunshots in the background. Here's what it sounds like.
You are pretty. You're so fine. Just going over some of your videos. How could I forget?
Notice there are like 6 gunshots.
6.
Then a pause, and then he fires off 4 more.
Yeah.
Now, we were told he'd been shot 6 times in the front, right?
Yep.
But now we're hearing 10 gunshots. Again, CNN, the audio went to CNN. CNN's the first ones that played it. And they have said they cannot verify the authenticity of the video. They have asked the FBI. Apparently, when the FBI started talking to people who lived in the area, that's how they found out about this. So they're trying to confirm the authenticity of the audio. But if that is an authentic audio, that does again raise the question. I mean, Officer Wilson, he shoots this guy who is unarmed, and according to 2 witnesses, has his hands up. He shoots him 6 times.
Yeah.
And then pauses and then feels he still hasn't subdued it and has to shoot him 4 more times?
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Something doesn't add up, and the police certainly aren't being very forthcoming with the details of the incident, and so piecing it together like this is torture.
And look, I know they have to be careful, but the idea, the fact that no charges have been filed yet against this officer, I just find just inexcusable and inexplicable. 11 minutes after the hour. We got a lot going on right now. Will Dobson is going to join us right here at the top of the hour from Slate, talking about ISIS. We'll jump down to Richmond, Virginia for the latest on the Bob McDonnell trial in the next segment. And then later, some reporters from Huffington Post and Politico joining us. But let's say hello to our good friend Will Dobson, Politics and Foreign Affairs editor for Slate magazine, on our newsline this morning. Hello, Will. It's been a long time. Good to talk to you again.
Good morning, Bill. How you doing?
All right. The president, front and center, dealing with the threat of ISIS in the Middle East. Tell us, first of all, who is this terrorist group? Where do they come from? How long have they been around?
Well, it's ISIS is it's an interesting organization in the sense that it represents sort of the full embodiment of an argument that's been going on among terrorists for more than a decade. And that was an argument that on one end of the spectrum was Osama bin Laden. On the other end of the spectrum is ISIS. And what that disagreement has been over this period of time is do you go after teetering Middle Eastern governments, or do you go after the United States? And Osama bin Laden's obvious, represented you strike the United States, or what terrorists refer to as the faraway enemy. ISIS is an outgrowth of Al Qaeda that began in Iraq, and if you remember this name,
yes.
We talked about it, now going almost a decade ago, Zarqawi, who is the leader of Al Qaeda in Iraq. Well, Zarqawi. Really, what he started in Iraq is what has morphed into ISIS. Baghdadi, the man who's leading ISIS right now, was a lieutenant of Zarqawi's. He rose to become the leader of ISIS after not only Zarqawi was killed in a U.S. airstrike, but then the successor to Zarqawi was killed. Baghdadi filled that role. He moved what the remains of Al Qaeda in Iraq to Syria about 3 years ago, and from Syria has rebuilt the organization and he's really changed the way it has operated. He's recruited former military leaders in Saddam Hussein's army to be his commanders. He has a more centralized structure in some ways, in that he doesn't appear to be a micromanager, but at the same time, there's strict lines of command. And what we have seen now is something that is really, as many people have commented on, it's a group that even Al Qaeda couldn't work with in its extremism.
And so have they abandoned any idea of striking the United States or American targets?
Not at all. It's just I think it's better to probably think of it as a matter of priorities. And while while they say and have claimed that ultimately, yes, at some point in time, the United States would be on their target list, it's much more. They have a very different MO, which is Al Qaeda was never focused on capturing territory, on holding land.
Exactly.
They're building a state.
Right.
And that was ultimately, it's interesting because, at the end of the day, if you go back and look at when bin Laden's goals were, it was to create an Islamic caliphate. But it's just instead, ISIS is beginning with that project.
So they want to create this caliphate carved out of Iraq and Syria, and then topple other governments that they consider extreme enough, I guess, right?
and weak. I would think that we've seen, and it's deeply alarming to people who know the Middle East well, that we've seen ISIS fighters along the border with Jordan, and the Jordanian regime is not by any means the most solid or strongest either. So people could imagine this bleeding in that direction, bleeding towards Lebanon as well. As we know, ISIS fighters have moved that way. It really has operated very much like an amoeba in the sense that while, at the very same time that the U.S. airstrikes of the last several weeks have pushed ISIS back in northern Iraq and away from the Mosul Dam, at the same time, they've made more and greater advances in Syria.
Where's the money come from?
Well, the money, they would like you to believe that the money comes from their fundraising efforts. It's just not the case. Rather, it's your sort of typical shakedowns or racketeering, banditry from the conquered areas. I mean, and that's one of the things that they are not interested. As much as they talk about establishing a caliphate, this is not a group that's showing much interest in governing the areas that they control. Rather, they rob, steal, and pillage.
The businesses are
businesses, the banks. No. It's massive looting, and then on top of that, as they've had success and as they've conquered areas of this terrain, they have been careful about taking things like oil fields and not destroying them in the process, taking things like dams. And so now we are looking at what is a far better financed, a far more wealthy terrorist operation, extremist operation than any we've seen before.
Now, President Obama yesterday at the American Legion Convention and down in Charlotte, John Kerry last week, both of them have said our goal, our mission is to destroy ISIS. Is it possible to destroy ISIS, and can we do so by airstrikes alone?
No, the answer to the second part of the question is no, we can't do it by airstrikes alone. And is it possible to do it at all? Well, in a sense that I suppose, it took a decade, but we effectively destroyed Al-Qaeda. I mean, you could argue that we haven't entirely destroyed Al-Qaeda. It's still operating in some shape or form, but it's been completely decimated. ISIS represents an enormous threat, as administration officials are saying. But there's other things about ISIS, though, that should give us a measure of confidence, which is that one, they're moving far faster and biting off far more than they can actually chew. The pace at which they've been expanding does not keep up with their rate of recruitment. So these are not areas, as they take them, that they can necessarily hold indefinitely. Mm-hmm. That's right off the bat. Then beyond that, it is a very special thing in this world to be so beyond the pale evil that you're actually able to form an alliance among the group of countries that currently wants to exterminate ISIS.
Yeah,
and they are achieving that.
Well, yeah, that's what I was sort of leading to too. Is why I don't mean to complain as an American, but why is it our job? I mean, why isn't Saudi Arabia and Iran and Jordan and other Middle Eastern countries coming up and saying we don't want these guys? These are a threat to us.
Well, I mean, I think there are a number of answers to that. One, I mean, they have, in some limited ways, they have started to do just that. I mean, no one more so than the Iranians, who have been doing everything from committing intelligence resources, troops, aerial drones. Assad has been bombing them along his border. So you have Saudi Arabia has condemned them and is not funding them. So to some degree you see that already happening. But it's also the case that U.S. air power, U.S. military power brought to bear, there isn't an equivalent.
Right. It is certainly number one on the president's agenda right now, and we are learning more and more about them. Hey, Will, good to check in with you again. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for your time. Okay. Will Dobson covers these, does a great job, a politics and foreign affairs editor of Slate magazine, slate.com. And when we come back, Bob McDonnell, how did he do on cross-examination? Jeff Shapiro from the Richmond Times-Dispatch.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 24 minutes after the hour, the big soap opera trial down in Richmond, Virginia. Bob McDonnell cross-examined by prosecutors. Jeff Shapiro from the Richmond Times-Dispatch has been following this trial from the beginning for the Richmond Times-Dispatch and for us here on the Bill Press Show. Hey, Jeff, good morning.
Good morning.
The last time we talked, the governor was about to face cross-examination by the prosecution. It ended yesterday. How did he hold up?
The governor and Mike Dry, the federal prosecutor, sort of mixed it up. It was all very crisp, all very professional, but at times clearly very tense. The prosecution taking the governor minute by minute, day by day, gift by gift, email by email, his relationship, his dealings with Johnny Williams. Of course, Johnny Williams, the former head of a company called Star Scientific that manufactures a dietary supplement, it's now off the market, and for which the aforementioned Williams believed he had won the full support of the state for his product in return for what the government estimates is $177,000 in gifts and gratuities to the governor and his family. To your point, there were a number of occasions during this cross-examination by Mike Dry in which the governor pushed back, saying that money was not a factor in decisions by his administration. As he put it, no, sir. However, as this very dramatic 2 days of interrogation closed, the governor did acknowledge that he had received these gifts.
But he denied that there was any quid pro quo. Is that it?
That is correct. However, this is not a corruption case in the quid pro quo case. The law, of course, is that there does not have to be an explicit exchange of services for goodies. That it can be, if you will, honest services that are denied in this case, the people of Virginia by the governor's alleged corruption. However, the government and the defense will be following closely the instructions that Judge James Spencer gives to the jury, perhaps by the end of the week, on what, for example, constitutes an official act. The jurors will have to make that determination. And it's possible that we could have a verdict on in this case, now in its fifth week, by sometime next week.
Wow. And just quickly, the governor's defense was, of course, that I couldn't have been part of this with my wife and this conspiracy because we were on such bad terms. We weren't even talking. The prosecution went out of its way to try to prove they were on pretty good terms after all, right?
Yes. Excuse me. One of the points that was raised by the prosecution was that in a period of 22 months, a period that parallels this alleged corruption, the governor and Mrs. McDonald made 18 trips together. Some of these included the McDonald family. The defense was quick to point out, and the governor himself made this point, that only one of those trips was it simply the governor and Mrs. McDonald. It was an RGA meeting, and the governor insists that relations were so bad that they didn't talk. They spent the weekend reading.
All right, Jeff, well, let's get back to the courtroom. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Oh, God.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate your children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC. Or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, The Bill Press Show here in Washington, D.C. in our studio on Capitol Hill. Brought to you today by the International Association of Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers. Put them all together. We've got the SMART Union giving a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. You bet. The men and women of the SMART Union under President Joseph Nigro. And for more information, check out their website at smart-union.org. President Obama addressing the convention of the American Legion yesterday down in Charlotte, North Carolina, and telling them our goal was, and our mission is to destroy ISIS, he called the most serious terrorist threat that we have seen so far. Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel saying that also last week. Molly O'Toole covers defense issues, related issues for Defense One, and she joins us in a studio this morning. Hey, Molly, nice to see you.
Good morning. Nice to see you, too.
Before we get to ISIS, word that there is yet another and perhaps more lasting ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. This one going to work?
I've got to go with what the Secretary of State said yesterday. His statement where he kind of lauded this announcement about the ceasefire seemed pretty cautious. He said, we're
skeptical a little bit.
Yeah, maybe. We're wide-eyed about the complications of this, and he seemed to acknowledge that previous ceasefires haven't held, and so I'll have to go with that.
When you look at who got what out of this, I think certainly Israel scored a bigger military victory, but and Gaza and the Hamas did not get anything close to what they were demanding in terms of full access back and forth between the Gaza Strip and Israel. It's more like, to me, tell me if I'm wrong, both sides just got tired of fighting.
Yeah, no, I certainly think that that's part of it. I mean, if anything, they've had, very brief breaks to kind of give each side a bit of a breather and let people regroup, get some aid into the area. So if anything, it seems like this might be more what that's about, just getting some much needed relief into the situation. And I think you're right, as we were discussing earlier. The terms don't seem that much different than some of the options that were originally discussed in the Egyptian brokered ceasefire 7 weeks ago.
Yeah, both sides have declared victory. Okay, fine, whatever. Let's just hope the ceasefire holds. Meanwhile, the White House has acknowledged that the president has authorized surveillance flights over ISIS targets inside of Syria. I mean, let's just be real. That means military airstrikes are going to follow pretty shortly. They wouldn't be doing the surveillance if they didn't plan airstrikes, correct?
That if we look, obviously the situation in Syria is very different than the situation in Iraq, but if we look at Iraq, that's certainly what was a precursor for airstrikes in Iraq. It was getting a better intelligence picture so that they could develop potential targets that they could strike. Then again, they're very different situations, and you have to look. It took Obama from August is when he authorized those airstrikes. So I don't think that they're in a rush. There's been a lot of discussion, a lot of hints, a lot of reports coming out that some kind of declaration of a broad strategy against ISIS, Islamic State, ISIL, whichever acronym you want to use.
We use ISIS.
Use ISIS, okay.
Everybody does except the White House.
The Associated Press is now using the Islamic State, but we'll stick with ISIS. But to the point that I was saying, I don't think he's in a rush. People seem to be suggesting that this decision is imminent, but I think particularly given the complications of the situation in Syria, I don't think they're in a rush to launch those airstrikes anytime soon.
But if ISIS is the threat that they tell us, and particularly after what they did to James Foley, and we kind of seem to have them on a run a little bit, the airstrikes in Iraq have certainly made a difference,
right,
in terms of protecting Erbil and providing relief to the. But there's a different kind of airstrike activity with the humanitarian relief.
No, I think that their momentum has certainly been broken in Iraq, but then you have to look at, other areas beyond northern Iraq or even within northern Iraq. You have to look at other areas that they're threatening. In addition, they've made a lot of gains. They've pushed in other areas. They're taking, we've broken their momentum in Iraq, but they've made a lot of gains in Syria. In the meantime. So I'd like to be more optimistic about...
Okay, well, I guess that's my point. If we sort of have them maybe on the run and they are making gains in Syria, so why wait? If we're going to do it, just do it.
Well, there's the obvious obstacle of the fact that we don't recognize, and the president has called for the removal of the president of Syria.
Yeah. Right.
That would be an obvious obstacle. On Monday they welcomed international cooperation in order to take airstrikes against ISIS, because ISIS is Assad's enemy as well. We have a common enemy, but they also made it very clear that any incursion into their airspace they would see as a violation of their sovereignty. And the government also has the capabilities to follow through with that. Now, that would be a tense situation in which they would, but
to the extent that you've been able to ascertain, are we talking, as we were as in Iraq, strictly U.S. airstrikes, military airstrikes, or is there going to be any attempt to build a coalition so that we're not the only ones?
I think very much that's what the administration wants, and that's the groundwork that they're trying to lay out right now, and that's what they've been emphasizing in recent days.
Maybe we provide the intelligence and the Brits or the French or the Germans or somebody else provide the hardware?
I think that is more what a situation that they would want, but not even necessarily Western allies, but other allies in the region that would have a more direct military role, whereas the U.S. would have a more advisory role. But certainly building an international coalition to back whatever potential action there might be in Syria. I think that's very much what they want. Now, how effective partners can be, how willing they themselves are going to be politically to do this, and regardless, there's still going to need to be some, like it or not, some coordination with the government of Syria. So whether it's we can claim that we're not doing any coordinating and through third parties, they can take the coordination.
I was going to say through a third party. No, while you're talking about, and I asked this question earlier of Will Dobson from Slate, that why some of these other countries in the Middle East who are directly threatened by an extremist group like ISIS, because they're Assad's enemy. They're also the enemy of the King of Jordan and the King of Saudi Arabia and Iran. I mean, they threaten all of those countries. We've given enough and sent enough fighter planes to Saudi Arabia and to Jordan. Why don't they use their fighter planes rather than we have to use ours?
Right. Well, I think there are a few complications to this. And I think this is beginning to happen. I think that's part of the president and the administration's really stepping up the heat in their rhetoric. Also, part of that is following the death of James Foley, but stepping up their rhetoric to try and get partners in the region to recognize that regardless of their own politics, and they're certainly swirling, and they support different groups. They even support different groups within Syria. They don't also, everyone has different sides. Beyond all of that they need to coalesce around the threat that ISIS poses to all of them.
Right.
So I think that's definitely part of him stepping up his rhetoric, and I think we're beginning to see that. Whereas before there may have been some of a little bit of a wait and see from our regional allies who didn't feel like they were as directly threatened by ISIS, and now they're starting to really see what they're capable of. But on the other side of that, I think that why the U.S. is in a particularly difficult situation here is we have the strongest military in the world. We have unique capabilities, which is not to say that regional partners are not capable. But I think that is why, people are looking to the U.S. for leadership here, because we have those unique capabilities.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been, okay, we'll just sort of sit there and watch the U.S. do its thing. I think they've got a lot at stake here as well. Just one, before we take a break, one final question about Assad. As you pointed out, ISIS is Assad's enemy as well, so we share a common enemy. At the same time, we want to get rid of Assad. So I guess the pragmatic and the pragmatic approach to this is, yes, we still want to get rid of Assad, but we'll kind of set that aside for a second. We'll deal with ISIS, and then we'll come back. I mean, it's not that we have changed our position on Assad.
Well, I think that the administration thus far, all across the board, has been very clear that they will not be coordinating with the Syrian government. I think they would see that
because they don't recognize it as legitimate.
Right. I think that
we don't. Yeah.
Right. I think they would see that as changing their position if they were to coordinate with the government. They've been very clear that they're not going to do that.
Yeah. So deal with Assad, and we'll come back. I mean, deal with ISIS, and then we'll come back and deal with Assad later. We're not letting him off the hook at all. Molly O'Toole here covering these issues. They're complicated issues, and a lot of pressure building on the president right now. How will Congress act on this? We're going to do that when we come back with Molly O'Toole from Defense One. And your questions, your comments. Airstrikes inside of Syria, something you could support. 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight. It's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean. But because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour here. In the next hour, Dave Jamieson from Huffington Post will be here to talk about Burger King. The new tax cheats they say want to be buying Tim Hortons. We'll find out whether that's going to go through right now. We're talking the potential of airstrikes, American airstrikes against ISIS forces inside of Syria with Molly O'Toole, a political reporter for Defense One. You can follow her work and her colleagues at defenseone.com. So if the president does decide, if we believe the White House and he has not already made the decision, which I somewhat doubt, to conduct these airstrikes against ISIS targets inside of Syria, if and when it does decide, will he need congressional authorization to do so, or does he have the authority to do?
That's really a debate that's heating up right now, and I think it helps that Congress is on recess, but as of next week, this is all going to come to a head. There's a few things going on here. So the president has, and his administration and the Pentagon as well, have very strongly argued that as of now, he's for the limited mission that we have in Iraq, which is not looking so limited anymore, that he is acting within his constitutional powers as commander-in-chief to protect American personnel and facilities
in Iraq.
In Iraq, right?
Well,
so that's what he's claiming.
All right, but I'm asking about in Syria.
Right. So he would have to make the argument, try to tie that argument to the protection of American personnel and facilities, perhaps against an imminent threat. And I don't think they can make that argument yet. Then the question becomes, what other authority does he have? Now, interestingly enough, the 2001 AUMF authorization for the use of military force and the 2002 authorization for the use of military force, neither one of them have any expiration date. So they're both still in effect. Now, they've been very clear to say that they're not using those powers, but the administration has also said that they are considering whether the 2001 AUMF could apply. And that's those 60 words, that one of the most sweeping things that's ever been passed. And they've made the argument before that associated forces come under that umbrella. They used to authorize drones. There could be the argument made that ISIS could be an associated force under that circumstance. They could use that, and then they wouldn't need anything from Congress. Congress voted on that 13 years ago. Or
Right.
they could seek a new authorization, but that's going to be very politically untenable at this
It's
time.
curious because the administration has also argued that the authorization of the use of military force was too broadly drawn and should be redefined, perhaps, by Congress. On this issue, is this something the American people would support as a necessary next step in the president's announced mission of destroying ISIS? Let's see a quick load down in Miami to Jesse. Hi, Jesse. Thanks for joining us. What's your question or comment?
Hi, Bill. Hey, the question would be is, Obama already said that if you kill one of these terrorists, you're going to create two. So I think the military solution is wrong. So I think the way to look at the problem would be is ISIS is a religion versus capitalism. It's not versus democracy. So I think that's where we look at the problem wrong. These guys, they want a job as much as anybody else. Yeah, they oppress women and do some other hard stuff, but that's a cultural thing that could be worked out. But the basic problem is when a man is hungry, man with empty pockets have nothing to lose.
All right, Jesse, I think you're giving ISIS too much credit. Way too much credit. Yeah. They're probably the most evil force that we have seen on the planet. And I'm not a war hawk, right? I'm basically a non-interventionist, if not a pacifist. But these are people who don't understand diplomacy, who don't understand making deals. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, these are pretty bad actors.
I don't think anyone is trying to argue that ISIS can necessarily be negotiated with. I mean, I think General Dempsey said they've got an apocalyptic, end of world vision, and I think that's accurate. But they've also emphasized that this can't be solely a military solution, and that I do think is true. Because regardless, say we expand our airstrikes campaign into Syria, there still has to be some force on the ground that's going to help retake territory and hold it. And then beyond that, that is not sustainable unless there is the kind of political reform, unless there is a diplomatic effort, to create a better foundation for people, including economic opportunities. So Jesse had a point there, because desperation is what fuels this kind of extremism.
And I think the reality is, too, this is not going to be resolved easily in the next month, in the next year, in the next decade. I mean, these problems have been around for a long time and are going to last well beyond the Obama presidency. And so we'll just do the best we can in the moment right now. And Molly O'Toole, we understand these things a lot better thanks to you, and thanks for coming in today.
Thanks so much.
All right, I'll be back. Tell you what's on the president's agenda for today down at the White House.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Yes, indeed. A pretty good 2 hours so far, but a big third hour coming up. Don't want you to miss it. Even if we lose you on Free Speech TV, you know the alternative. Jump over to our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV, and you will meet Dave Jamieson from Huffington Post, their labor reporter, here to talk about the consequences of the BK merger, Burger King's merger with Tim Hortons. And then we'll talk to Edward Isaac Dovere from Politico about what's going on at the White House this week with President Obama. Hour number 3 on TawkrTV.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine.
I would make medicine for the sick.
I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much. I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter.
I think I'd go looking for aliens.
If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime. I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed. If I had 5 more extra years to live, I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas.
I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Dave Jamieson from Huffington Post joins us at the top of the next hour. Then we'll talk with a White House reporter from Politico, Edward Isaac Dovere, President Obama. He and the vice on the schedule today. Not a lot in terms of public events. The president and the vice president get their daily briefing at 10 o'clock, and then at 11:15, the president meets with the members of his economic team in the Roosevelt Room of the White House. Josh Earnest back on the job, a proud new father of his first child, a son born a couple of weeks ago. Josh Earnest will be giving his press briefing at 12:45 this afternoon. I'll be there, and I'll tell you all about it tomorrow. Back with Dave Jamieson from Huffington Post.
This is the Bill Press Show.
West here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww. You should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Don't look at me. bit frizzy today. Aww.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
From dollars to donuts, Burger King makes it official. They're buying Tim Hortons. What's it all mean? Hello, everybody. August 27, Wednesday, and The Bill Press Show. Here we are in our nation's capital, and here we are with you on your local progressive talk radio station. Here we are with you on Free Speech. No, not on Free Speech TV this hour. On our worldwide video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Thanks for joining us. A lot going on here in Washington, around the country, and around the globe. We'll tell you all about it. You tell us what it means to you at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Our team here today, all back, all in place for the last few days of summer. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Hello, hello.
Hello, Bill.
Hey there. Hey, Bill. Good morning.
Welcome back, Elisa.
Nice to be here.
Alicia Cruz on the phones. 866-55-PRESS is your ticket to talk to Alicia and then to all the rest of the nation. And Cyprian Bolding keeping the video cameras and the lights on so we look good on our worldwide video stream. And welcome back to the program. A good friend of ours from Huffington Post covers labor and related economic issues. Dave Jamieson. Hello, Dave. Nice to see you.
Good to be here, Bill.
Congratulations, Peter. Dave was telling me he's on vacation in Yellowstone and got engaged while he was out there.
Right.
Oh, how exciting.
Thank you very much.
You didn't ask us first?
Welcome to the team.
I'll check with you next time.
Next time around.
Let's hope the soon-to-be Mrs. Jamieson isn't watching this.
Yeah. I just have to report I had an unusual experience last evening. I feel like a very lucky person that Carol and I had dinner at the best new restaurant, not just in Washington, the best new restaurant, according to Bon Appetit magazine, in the entire country, which is 2 blocks from our studio.
Down the street, man.
Right in our hood here. We're 2 blocks down, called Rose's Luxury. And Peter knows the owner. Peter's been there several times. It took me months and months to get in because they don't take reservations.
That's been all. I live on the hill. It's been all the talk. Haven't been there myself yet, but
it's a real treat. It's an incredibly good restaurant, in very, very creative and very delicious food. Yeah,
I'm glad you finally went.
Yeah, loved it. I mean, it rates all. Sometimes you go to places and it's sort of a letdown. We didn't find it that way at all. That was very, very, very good.
Good.
Yeah, and the only thing is, you have to wait on a long line to get in because they don't take reservations.
It's a very interesting model that they have going on that pisses a lot of people off, but they take no reservations.
Yeah, and
so you gotta want it.
So
you gotta want
it opens only for dinner. Opens at 5:30, and so if people start lining up about 4 o'clock, no kidding. I went down about 5:15. The line was a block long, and and when I get in, of course, they had how many is a seat? 90?
Maybe. Yeah, I'd say 80, 90, yeah.
Yeah, at max, right?
And this is when nobody's supposed to be in town, too.
Oh, yeah. I think it's less than 90. But anyway, whatever it seats, quickly fills up. And then what they do, you put your name in, and they say, okay, and you give them your call, a number, and okay, it'll be probably an hour and a half. It'll be 2 hours. It'll be 2.5 hours. We'll text you when your table is ready, and we'll give you 15 minutes to get there. Now, we live close enough. That's what I wanted to do. Put our name in. 2 hours later, I'm home doing some work, hungry as hell. But you get the text, and you got 15 minutes to get there. Yeah. And that's the system. I've never seen anybody else use that system, but it works for them anyhow.
It seems to, yeah.
So just want to know, Rose's Luxury.
All right.
Yeah, think about it. And if you're in Washington and you've got time to kill, you can wait in line. Hey, we got lots to talk about with Dave about a restaurant on the other end of the chain.
This was not the best new restaurant in America?
From Rose's Luxury to Burger King.
I think this is a really interesting segue into Burger King.
Right. And Edward Isaac Dovere is going to join us a little bit later from Politico to talk the White House agenda today. But first, Peter with the big story of the day.
The Full Court Press.
Yes, Steve, just a few other things happening around.
I want to salute the chef. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned Aaron Silverman.
Aaron Silverman.
Young man, grew up in the Washington, D.C. area, and had this vision to create this restaurant.
Former accountant? You just decided to stop being an accountant and do a restaurant.
And a huge success. Kudos to him.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's jump up to Minnesota. You've heard of, I'm sure neither one of you have ever done this. I know I haven't. Of teenagers who go out and prank and toilet paper trees in someone's neighborhood.
No.
Yeah.
Oh.
Apparently this happens. I've never had anything like that happen to me. Well, some teenagers got a taste of some bad medicine in Minnesota. They went to toilet paper someone's house, except the owner of the house came out wielding a samurai sword and chased the teenagers back to their car, where he then broke one of the windows, slashed one of the tires. The man has been charged because he came out with a deadly weapon. None of the teenagers were seriously hurt, although one of them did actually get a cut on his left hand and right forearm.
Whoa.
So one of the homeowners decided to fight back, I guess.
Oh, my goodness.
So think twice before you go and toilet paper someone's house.
Right. Our house in Sacramento was TP'd one night. This by...
Did you come out with your sword?
No, I didn't. But by a man who is now a member of the United States Congress.
Oh!
I will not reveal his name, but he knows who I'm talking about.
The NFL football season is right around the corner, and we found out that last week during an exhibition game, a fan, flew a drone into the Carolina Panthers Chiefs exhibition game. Now, drones are not only banned by the NFL, but they're banned by the FAA to fly into public areas like that.
Yeah,
so they actually found the man. They announced this yesterday, the whole operation. They found the man who had flown the drone. They're fining him. But the NFL just wanted to make clear, if you're thinking about coming to an NFL game, they're banned from the parking lots. They're banned from the games. They're banned from the post-game celebration.
Yeah.
You cannot fly drones around sporting events.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, the NFL's argument here is some of it has to do with copyright stuff, because a lot of these drones have the cameras, so they're getting these close-up shots of the game. But also the fact that, if someone kicks the ball too high, you might hit a drone. So
or it could fly
leave the drone at home.
Yeah. Leave the drone at home.
Leave your drone at home. By the way, they just back in Yellowstone. The director of the National Park Service last week, John Jarvis, also has banned drones from all national parks. Good move.
Amen to that.
All right, so as we segue into the talk about Burger King, here's a little something that will help us move into that topic. Little Caesars has announced that they are changing up their pizza menu. Normally, Little Caesars, their whole thing is apparently you walk in, it's $5, and you walk away with a pizza. It's ready all the time, right? And they have pepperoni or cheese. Well, they are adding a new item to their menu. It is the pepperoni pizza with a pretzel crust, salted pretzel crust, and instead of red sauce, they're using nacho cheese.
What?
No.
Ew.
Pretzel crust, nacho cheese, and 7 different kinds of cheese with pepperoni on top. It's going to go for $6 for an entire pizza. They're going to be found at any Little Caesar store between September 1st and October 26th.
Never been in a Little Caesars pizza parlor, and now I never
Pizza
will.
parlor is a stretch for what Little
Is it?
Caesars is.
Okay.
Yeah, if you like boiled pizza, Little Caesars is the pizza for you.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Give me another good reason not to go.
You got it.
Burger King. They said yesterday this deal is final. Dave, is it? Is there any? Did they need any approval to merge with Tim Hortons?
Right now, it looks like it's pretty much it's moving forward.
I mean, this is not something that the Justice Department or somebody can say.
I know part of the reason, one thing Burger King is saying about, why they're going to incorporate in Canada is to appease Canadian regulators. Tim Hortons being this Canadian icon. So that was, apparently one concern for the company was, how is Canada going to receive this big American corporation, taking over their company? So they say that's one reason they're going in there. But a lot of people think, and very likely a piece of this is the tax question.
Meaning that they think the tax rate in this country is too high, and they'll save money by being a Canadian company and paying a Canadian tax rate.
Yeah.
What is the corporate tax rate here, and what are they in fact paying?
Well, the highest corporate tax rate in the U.S., I believe, is 35 right now. Canada, I didn't realize Canada had such a low corporate tax rate. Theirs is significantly lower. I think it's around 15. So about half or a little less than half the U.S.
But what is, if 35%, what do we know what Burger King is really paying?
Well, it's hard to know how this is going to shake out when it comes to the taxes. There are some people saying the savings aren't going to be that substantial. So the way these inversions work, the profits that they get, even if they incorporate in Canada, if they move their corporate citizenship to Canada, they still get taxed on their profits in America. But there are some games they can play. They can shift some debt to the U.S. side of things and kind of on the ledger have more of their profits on the Canadian side. So that would effectively lower their tax rate. With these inversions, what you usually see is an American company buying kind of like a smaller foreign company to incorporate over there. Tim Hortons is a big deal, right? So, it's hard to say how much the tax piece, how big the tax piece is in Burger King's motivations in doing this. Because I think, a big part of this is obviously they want to be a huge fast food power. This is going to make them I think the third largest of all fast food companies. They'll be behind McDonald's and Yum, which owns like Taco Bell and KFC. So this is their move to become a real powerhouse, but there's could very well be some nice added tax benefits here. And that's got people upset. People don't like that. It looks unpatriotic.
No, it does look unpatriotic. So why don't they, there would not be a peep about this, it seems to me, if Burger King just bought another big fast food company in this country, or even Tim Hortons. It's the moving of the headquarters to Canada that's got people upset. Why don't they just do the merger without moving their operations?
That's a good question. I don't, I'm not in the BK boardroom, so it's hard to know, what their thinking is.
Well, I guess obviously there must be some motivation,
right?
And if it's not to cheat on their taxes, what is it?
And by the way, if this upsets you on a personal level, you can do what comedian Jim Gaffigan recommended, and you can boycott Burger King by continuing to not eat at Burger King.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I could announce that I'm boycotting Burger King. They're not losing any money from my boycott, right? Because I've never been in one. Maybe I have once a long time ago, but
look, confession time, right? I have young kids, so there have been times that we do the drive-through thing. We cook at home 95% of the time, but there are those moments that we do the drive-through thing, and Burger King has been an option.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to go back there, but they're not missing a ton of business from me, but. Yeah, absolutely. There's no way I'm going to go back.
Now, we also want to make clear that when we say they're going to move their headquarters to Canada, they're not really moving anything to Canada.
No, the system doesn't change.
This is a paper or internet.
They'll have offices here and everything.
Right.
It's just it's moving your corporate citizenship in name, essentially.
What they claim to be to their headquarters.
That's right.
And for tax purposes, they'll say this is why.
It's not going to change their U.S. operations.
Okay.
It's not going to change their franchises or any of that.
Now, how can Warren Buffett be part of such a dastardly
that's
deed.
a really interesting piece of this. Is Buffett is helping finance this, and Obama has been out there.
This is a man who says everybody ought to pay their fair share of taxes, and the secretary should not pay a higher rate of taxes than I, Warren Buffett, pay. And this seems to be the contradiction of that.
Yeah, and interestingly, Buffett has been a big help to Obama.
Right.
He's
the Buffett rule, right?
That's right. And Obama, when it comes to these inversions, he was out there talking about this before this Burger King stuff went down.
Yeah.
This is just the most visible thing. He said, I want to go after this. I want to find a way, what can Treasury do without Congress to address this? So, yeah, the whole Buffett thing is a really fascinating angle to this.
Okay. So do you think it's going to go through?
Yeah, this will go through. I think the question in the U.S. is what's going to happen policy-wise with these inversions.
Right.
This has a lot of people talking about it.
This could be the trigger that would get Congress to do something.
Probably not, though.
Congress, no.
Yeah, well, House Republicans, they say if they're going to address First of all, I don't think anybody generally likes what Burger King is doing here. Whatever your political persuasion, no American really, likes the idea of a kind of iconic American company saying we're going to become Canadian now. That said, even if Republicans have said, all right, we're willing to do something about inversions, but it's got to be part of a bigger tax deal, and that's the deal breakers. They're going to want to lower the corporate tax rate. So the Democrats aren't going to go along with that. And so for right now, it's hard to see Congress doing anything on this the way it's hard to see them doing anything on almost anything.
Mm-hmm. And does the Burger King merger strike the fear in the hearts of other fast food operations and other franchisees? Dave Jamieson here with us from Huffington Post. What about you? You going to turn your back on Burger King? 866-55-PRESS will continue after this quick break. Stay with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, Edward Isaac Dovere from Politico in the next segment. Dave Jamieson here with us in studio from Huffington Post. Dave, we're talking about Burger King. Peter, before we do, you have a quick update.
Yeah, just quick. I talked earlier about the Time Warner Cable.
Yes, they're down, right?
There were reports of nationwide internet outages. Time Warner Cable has put out a statement. They said that the backbone of their entire internet operation went down this morning at around 4:30 a.m.
Pretty embarrassing.
And nationwide outages. They said a lot of it was back up at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. Service was still spotty after 7 a.m., but they say that now it is mostly restored. Their cable internet serves about 14.5 million homes. So 14.5 million people were without internet this morning.
All right. Dave, how are franchises in general? Franchise owners got a little help in California recently.
They did. The California legislature passed a bill. It's basically like a franchisee's Bill of Rights. What it's going to do is make it a lot harder for big companies like McDonald's or Burger King to end a franchisee's contract. The franchisees have a lot of concerns, and this was very interesting to watch because what you had in California was you had like fast food workers and the labor unions that back them kind of joining with franchisees, right? And a lot of times franchisees are painted as the bad guys, right?
Yeah.
Because they run the restaurants. In this instance, they were like, the thinking was like, hey, maybe if franchisees find a way to get treated better by the big corporations that are the brands, then maybe that's going to trickle down to the workers, and the workers are going to get treated better too. So you had them teaming up in California. They got this bill through, and McDonald's and all them, they're worried about it.
Yeah, they're worried about it. All right, well, maybe they ought to be. It's nice to see the workers and the franchisees come together on something. Dave Jamieson, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks, Bill. Great being here.
Good to see you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Really? No way. Hey, I'm Eric.
Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Racing dot. I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, Wednesday, August 27, the Bill Press Show from live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio on Capitol Hill. Close to the action here, to the extent there is any, from Washington, D.C. these days. And we're brought to you this morning by the International Association of Machinists, good men and women of the Machinists Union under President Tom Buffenbarger, sharpening America's edge on the global economy, you bet. And you can find out more about their good work at their website, goiam.org. President Obama back in the White House now and back after his vacation in Martha's Vineyard and his address to the American Legion yesterday down in Charlotte, North Carolina. Edward Isaac Dovere joins me in the White House briefings, covering the White House for Politico, and joining us on our news line this morning. Hey, Edward, always good to talk to you. Thank you.
Good morning, Bill. How are you?
We're doing good. Thank you. You stirred things up a little bit. I was not on Air Force One yesterday with the president, but I read the transcript of the gaggle of Press Secretary Josh Earnest, and one of the things that he was asked about was your story on some kind of non-reported fundraising activity on the part of the vice president. Tell us about it.
That's right. The vice president has been traveling around the country quite a bit these past couple of months for government purposes, also for some campaign events. But what they had not been telling us is that at basically every stop that he's been doing, or most of the stops he's been doing, they have found a room somewhere. Occasionally it's at the same hotel where an official event is going on. Occasionally it's just at the airport before he leaves. And they tell local House candidates, get a bunch of your top donors to come. We'll get you a photo with the vice president, and that'll help with your donations. This is one of those things where the vice president's office says, these are just photo lines. They're not fundraisers, because the vice president doesn't make formal remarks. So that's their definition of a fundraiser. But I think most people would look at this and say the vice president is taking photos with people who have written checks to House campaigns and taking photos at the request of those campaigns. That looks a lot like fundraising. And it's the kind of thing that we're usually told about happens, but had not been told about was going on at all.
But these are, this is the year of midterm elections. All right, every seat in the House is up, Republican and Democrat, up for re-election, and as well as a lot of governorships and 36 Senate seats. So should we really be surprised that the president and the vice president are helping members of their own party get re-elected?
Well, I don't think that we should be surprised at that at all. And in fact, you see a huge commitment from the president this year and from the vice president to be doing a lot of fundraising. The tricky thing here is that whenever the president does a fundraising event, they tell us about it. Now, they don't often tell us, let us into the whole thing. And there have been some events, including some of the super PAC events that the president's been doing, that reporters aren't allowed into at all, don't even know who's there, how much the tickets cost to get there. But these are events that the vice president has been doing.
But those events, you at least they take place, is what you're saying.
You know that they take place, and you know that what he is benefiting from the events that he's doing, whether it's the Democratic National Committee or the House Democratic Committee or the Senate Democratic Committee, or even these super PACs that reporters are kept out of. We know that he is helping out this particular super PAC or that particular super PAC. With the vice president, we did not know that he was doing any of these fundraising events for the specific House candidates at all.
Not on his schedule at all.
Not on his schedule. And one of the things that we looked at was many of these candidates who he has been giving the help to with the donations and getting the donors roused are people who have been less eager to appear with members of the Obama administration in public because of their own political needs, which is a balance that every candidate needs to strike. But given that the vice president was trying to keep these under wraps in particular, seems like an even stranger situation.
So the response from the White House is, oops, we're sorry, we will never do it again.
No, that was not the response from the White House at all. Again, the response from the vice president's office was, like I said, these aren't fundraisers, so I don't understand what the problem is. The response from Josh Earnest yesterday, when he was asked about this, was that the president does not do events like this. That is, this is just something the vice president's been doing.
Yeah, this is just Joe. Right. Edward Isaac Dovere with us from Politico, White House reporter for Politico. Now, the thing about these are the dog days of summer where nothing's going on. There's nothing to talk about. There are no issues. I mean, so for the president, he doesn't have anything to worry about except ISIS, Ferguson, immigration reform, Gaza, climate change, and the midterm elections, I guess, right? Is
that the full list?
I don't even think that's the full list. What's the priority? ISIS?
Well, it depends what you're talking about. Obviously, any president has to deal with many things at once. The last couple of weeks, it was the Ferguson situation and the ISIS situation. But the planning is very much going on to have him focus more on the midterms, basically after Labor Day. He's going to be doing some fundraising this weekend, and then we'll expect to see more from him on the political side. But the ISIS situation is a real problem, and I think it's a real problem for him on a number of fronts. Number one, he doesn't want to get drawn back into Iraq, and he knows that the American public doesn't want to get drawn back into Iraq. He himself has a number of things that stand in his way, including what happened last year when he tried and then didn't go into Syria with the whole congressional authorization thing. He has a problem when it comes to talking about what he is dealing with ISIL or ISIS, in that he not that long ago described it as a JV organization, and yesterday described it as a cancer that needed to be rooted out, barbaric terrorists. That's a big leap for the rhetoric in just a couple of months, and he's got to figure out that. He's also got to figure out the legal authorization that would be there for him to go after ISIL, and whether he decides to essentially elevate by escalating the military action into what would look more like a war against ISIL. Those are all on his plate, and
plus a consideration of bombing in another country, the authority of which we don't recognize, right?
That's right, and especially because doing so would probably not. If he bombs ISIL in Syria, that's not going to be something that Bashar Assad is necessarily upset about.
No, it'll help. It'll help Assad, right? Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to figure out a way around, also. And so all those things are on his mind, and complicating his options that he's got in front of him.
If you were to look today, the fact that surveillance flights are already underway inside of Syria for potential military targets, wouldn't you have to? I mean, shouldn't we all just accept the fact that the airstrikes are sure to follow?
I wouldn't say sure, but it does
pretty sure,
very much like they are making sure that they will give him options that he can say yes, do that, and there can be airstrikes within very short order.
And will he, in your judgment, how do you read the signs? Will he go back to Congress and say, it's clear we need to do this and I need your authorization to do it? Or either I need or I want your authorization to do it. I guess
right.
There's a big difference there, isn't there?
It's. I don't think that they've made a decision about what they're going to do. And what happened with the Syria authorization vote last year, or lack thereof, was something that was not very soon forgotten in the White House, and certainly has been on their minds of late. They don't want to be in a situation where the president ramps up the rhetoric again about doing something and then gets rebuffed in Congress, including by his own party, and has to pull back. And do you remember that speech that the president ended up giving in September? It was a primetime speech in which he came out, and it was after it was clear there was not going to be an authorization vote, and so he couldn't go forward with the airstrikes against Syria. And he said, talked about how awful Bashar Assad was and how terrible massacring people with chemical weapons was, and then said the world needs to respond to this, and so we're going to think about what we do. And and then he turned around and he walked away.
Right. No, I mean, and now here we are a year later, right, with an entire different situation, an entire different set of military strikes or airstrikes potentially inside of Syria, and a very complicated situation there. That's why the president got so much gray hair, right? It's certainly very obvious, and it's clearly a situation he would rather not be in. The last thing he wants is be talking about more airstrikes in Iraq or in Syria. Edward Isaac Dovere, at least you and I get to watch it and report on it. Don't have to make those decisions. And always good of you to spend some time with us this morning. We'll see you back in studio soon, we hope.
All right. Appreciate it, Bill.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. For Politico, Politico.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want. But lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 12 minutes before the top of the hour. Here we go on the Bill Press Show this Wednesday, August 27. An update on something that Peter reported on yesterday.
Yesterday, I told you the story about the football player, Josh Shaw, plays for USC in California. He saw his 7-year-old nephew, who can't swim, in the pool, and Josh Shaw was on the second floor balcony. He saw the kid in the pool, so he jumped off the balcony. He says he suffered sprains to both of his ankles, got the kid out of the pool. All right, that was the story yesterday. As the day went on, and by the way, USC went out and said this is a great story.
Yeah.
And a quote from
Hero.
Josh Shaw.
He's our hero.
He's a hero.
Yeah.
He saved this kid. He said he would have done it for any other kid, not just a family member. The school began getting phone calls yesterday questioning the validity of this tale.
From people saying BS.
From people who said it was garbage. They said that they had other sides of the story. And the school yesterday had to come out and say, we actually are going to back away from our story about the swimming pool. They didn't say that it was a lie, but they said, we're going to do our due diligence. We're going to find out what happened, and we're going to let you know what happened.
Yeah.
So it looks like this whole hero jumping from a balcony story is BS.
Remember I asked you yesterday when you reported this, you mean there was nobody else around?
Right.
Nobody else around the pool who could have, he had, he said there was nobody else in sight, just this kid in the pool. I found that hard to believe.
Yeah. You were skeptical early on.
Now I know
with
why.
Good reason.
Yeah, right. Sounds to me like there might have been something else going on.
Yep.
Why he jumped off the balcony.
We don't know what. There have been several rumors. The coach yesterday, Steve Sarkisian, said, quote, I won't get involved in any of the rumors. So far, everything is speculation.
So the moral of the story is you can't believe anything Peter Ogburn says.
That's right. That's right. My role as America's trusted newsman just took a little my image has been tarnished just a little bit.
A lot of people were suckered in by that story. You weren't the only one. Hey, an update on the story we talked about earlier today. The most interesting story of the day to me is the big fight yesterday that broke out on the United Airlines flight from Newark, New Jersey to Denver. It was diverted to Chicago, Illinois, because two passengers got in a royal fight over the use of a knee defender. By the way, the update is, I didn't realize, we talked about it earlier, these devices have already been banned by all the major airlines. But this guy was able to get a knee. This is a little piece of plastic. There are two of them. And you attach them to your tray table. And if you do, down at the bottom of the tray table on the seat in front of you, it will prevent the seat in front of you, prevent the person in the seat in front of you from reclining. So, those people who are tall and the space is more and more cramped on airplanes, no doubt about it. And particularly for tall people, they say they need leg room and they don't want the person in front of them to be able to recline their seat. So if they put this little device on, a guy did it. He was in the middle seat. The woman in front of him wanted to put her seat back, take a little snooze. She couldn't do so. She said, "What the hell's going on?" He said, "I've blocked you from doing so." He refused to remove it. She raised hell, which she should have. It's her right to recline her seat. And then she stood up and threw a cup of cold water on the guy. They diverted the flight to Chicago and threw them both off the plane. That lady should have been able to stay on the plane. They should have given her a seat in first class. But she should have been able to stay on the plane, and it's her right to recline her seat. These knee defenders, it's outrageous. They have a device that would interfere with the operation of that part of the plane.
I want to read this tweet to you because we talked about this a little earlier. We got a tweet that we didn't get a chance to get to. Beverly chimed in. She says, "I don't have a knee defender, but I paid for my seat too. Why should I have someone else in my lap?"
You should not have to have someone else in your lap, but that person in the front, it's not really in your lap.
I agree. I agree with you.
It is a pain in the ass if you're sitting there and somebody does recline their seat all the way.
Yes.
Seats don't recline as far as they used to, but then you know what you do? You recline your seat.
The other thing...
And then it goes all the way back.
The other thing, if you have one of these knee defenders, is if this woman asked and said, "Hey, dude, I want to recline my seat," and he's going to say, "No, I'm not going to. I've got a knee defender."
Which is what he said.
Yeah. Screw you, dude.
Screw you, right.
Like, it's one thing if you...
No, I mean,
it's obnoxious to put it on in the first place.
Right. I paid for my seat. Yeah. I've got a right to recline my seat. I've got a tray table and a seat. I don't have a lot of room, but at least I have those two things. You take one of them away from me, I want my money back.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, throw that other guy off. Don't divert the plane. Just open the door. Throw him out.
Throw him out and his knee defender.
And his knee defender. Damn it. All right. One more shot, parting shot coming up.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, who said it was going to be easy? Yep, this week President Obama faces one of the most critical decisions of his presidency. As we were talking this morning, whether or not to order airstrikes against ISIS targets inside of Syria, a decision ripe with consequences because it means a big expansion of our mission in Iraq. It would entail bombing inside another country without their permission. And, of course, it might interfere with our efforts to oust President Assad as head of Syria. But, and I say this not as a war hawk, but as a non-interventionist, if the president's really serious about achieving the goal he announced yesterday, destroying ISIS, then he has no choice. For now, the advance of ISIS has been thwarted in Iraq, but Syria is where they started. Syria is where they're based. That's where most of the military installations and equipments are found. So ISIS, the most dangerous terrorist threat we've ever faced, to destroy them, we must go ahead and bomb their bases inside of Syria. And the sooner we do so, the better. My parting shot for today, folks. Have a great Wednesday. Come back and see us again tomorrow morning. We'll be looking for you. Have a good one.
This is the Bill Press Show.